Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the wildly misunderstood world of adolescent emotions. And listen, we're not here to judge. We are looking at this with deep empathy and some seriously groundbreaking neuroscience. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by your own brain, or if you're an adult trying to figure out what is going on with the teenager in your life, you are absolutely in the right place. Picture this. You're sitting in your room, maybe staring out a rainy window, and out of nowhere, bam, this crushing, unexplainable wave of sheer loneliness just tightens your chest. It's like, where did that even come from? You start wondering how a totally casual comment from a family member or just a weird look from someone at school can make you burst into tears or absolutely explode with anger, especially when just a couple of hours ago you were laughing perfectly fine with your friends.
When this keeps happening, man, it is so easy to start hating your own sensitivity. You kind of start feeling like a misfit, right? Like you're trapped on this isolated island while a fierce internal storm is just raging around you. And the absolute worst part, while you're battling this, the adult world completely misreads the situation. They look at your very real pain and write it off as just dramatic rebellion or a lack of manners. That cold judgment, it just makes the walls of your island so much higher. But what if we completely flip the script here? What if we look past the slammed doors and the sudden crying spells and actually look at the neural architecture of your brain? We really need to ask, is all this emotional turbulence actually a character flaw, or is it a sacred biological necessity, like a massive structural renovation that your brain literally has to go through? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to look at modern neuroscience. The science is crystal clear here. These wild mood swings, they're totally involuntary. They're driven by a very real, measurable biological phenomenon called asynchronous development. Basically, that's just a fancy way of saying two crucial parts of your brain are growing at totally different speeds during puberty. So, here's the core conflict happening inside your head. On one side, we have the amygdala. That's your brain's emotional command center for raw instincts, fear, impulsive anger, the whole shebang. On the other side, you've got the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational logic, impulse control, and long-term planning. During your teenage years, that emotional amygdala is growing like crazy and firing at max capacity. But that rational prefrontal cortex, it's lagging way, way behind. We know all this thanks to the brilliant Dr. Jay Geed at the National Institute of Mental Health. He spent decades mapping the adolescent brain using structural MRI technology. And what he found is absolutely fascinating. He proved that the human brain doesn't just mature evenly all at once. No, it literally builds itself from the emotional back all the way to the logical front. Now, the absolute best way to visualize this asynchronous development is to imagine your brain as a high-end sports car, okay? Right now, you are driving around with the ferocious, high-horsepower emotional engine of a Ferrari. It is roaring and ready to go. But your rational braking system, that prefrontal cortex, is still being put together, and right now it's functioning like a pair of flimsy bicycle brakes. So when you suddenly hit the emotional gas pedal, the car careens forward without a real brake, leading to some pretty painful psychological collisions. If we look at the biological timeline, it all starts making sense. Right at the onset of puberty, that amygdala hits its peak operational capacity. Then, by your mid-teens, you get this massive surge of hormones like estrogen and testosterone thrown into the mix, creating these violent emotional fluctuations. So when stress hits, your emotional Ferrari engine revs up instantly, way before those bicycle brakes can cool things down. And get this, those brakes won't actually be fully installed and sealed until your mid-20s. Yeah, you heard that right. 25. Science literally proves that until around age 25, young people are absolutely not faking it. They aren't exaggerating their intense feelings. When you look at it biologically, your internal storms are 100% real. The actual machinery you need to smoothly navigate those emotional surges, it just hasn't finished being built yet. But, if we step back from the pure anatomy for a second, depth psychology gives us an even cooler perspective. It tells us that this chaotic phase isn't just a biological glitch. It is the sacred birth of your ego. This is the exact moment you're sculpting your individual identity. You're stretching your emotional boundaries so you can finally step out of the shelter of childhood and experience the world with real, profound depth. But let's be real for a second. Doing that today, it's harder than ever. We live in a digital pressure cooker. You're trying to birth your identity while dealing with endless TikTok and Reels scrolling, nonstop push notifications, and 24/7 digital connectivity. You're constantly being observed by your peers. It's just an unrelenting stream of algorithmic content that never, ever gives your developing brain a moment of actual silence. And all this constant digital friction, it forces an already hypersensitive amygdala into a state of severe overstimulation. Your brain is trying to process way too much social data, too many comparisons, too many threats. It pushes that overheated Ferrari engine straight into the red, driving youth into deep social anxiety and absolute emotional burnout. And here's where the real tragedy hits. When a teenager finally just shuts down, isolates, or hides in their room to protect their fried nervous system, adults systematically misread it. They see this vital defensive survival mechanism, and they label it as coldness, apathy, or shocking lack of gratitude. Actually, scratch that, it's worse. They see it as a personal insult, rather than realizing it's just a desperate attempt to find shelter from the storm. So listen to me, those sudden outbursts of anger, the withdrawn silence, the random tears, they are not manipulative tantrums. They are a silent cry for help from a struggling ego. It's desperately trying to reconcile its raw, primal instincts with the highly critical, demanding rules of adult society. Society wants you quiet and perfectly balanced, while your body is literally using this chaos to forge your future resilience. Once you understand this incredible biological blueprint, it changes everything. It means you can completely drop the shame. Seriously, take a deep breath. You are not going crazy. You are not broken. You're not defective. You are simply growing up in the most magnificent, scientifically complex, and authentic way possible. Now, I want to give you something really practical. For those moments when your Ferrari engine is redlining, try what I call the amygdala whisperer ritual. It's an incredibly simple mindfulness trick. Just place one hand gently over your forehead, literally touching where your prefrontal cortex is building itself, and place your other hand softly over your chest. Then just practice some box breathing. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Just channel that warm, soothing energy right into your body. You might be wondering, why does this even work? Well, this somatic connection directly activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your body's built-in calming network. The physical touch and the structured breathing act like an emergency handbrake. It instantly cools down that emotional storm, signals to your brain that you are safe, and brings you back to a baseline of inner peace right away. So the next time that huge wave of sadness or anger hits, just slow down, do the ritual, notice the feeling, and just softly whisper to yourself, "My amygdala is working overtime right now, and that is completely okay. I'm safe, and I'll let this wave pass." Make friends with your biology instead of violently suppressing that. And once you're grounded, you gotta let that pent-up energy out through healthy outlets. Journal those chaotic thoughts just to get them out of your head. Express the pain through drawing. Blast some resonant music, or just go for a run to literally burn off the physical tension. Let the storm flow out naturally instead of bottling it all up. And for any adults watching this explainer, please take this to heart. Never use the cold, calculated logic of a fully formed 30-year-old brain to crush the aching heart of a 15-year-old. Don't give them a lecture. Give them a safe harbor. Be their rational brakes when theirs fail, and let them know that no matter how wild their internal storm gets, they are deeply loved. As we wrap up this explainer, I have a question for you all. Did you spend your teenage years feeling totally isolated inside these kinds of emotional storms, just wishing anyone understood the biology behind your pain? If you found a little peace today in understanding the neuroscience of your soul, drop a dot or share your story in the comments. Let's remind each other that we are walking this journey of emotional mastery together. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep learning.